Hello, and welcome back to another chapter of It Hurts the Hope by Inquilitory on AO3. Chapter 11, Being Brave. Zelda knows that Mumbo and Scar are worried about him. He knows this, but he's not quite sure what to do about it. It's been over a week since he's taken up residence at Mumbo's base, and he still refuses to leave the area, despite Mumbo's gentle offers. Hermits visit a few times, Impulse or B-Dubs dropping by to say hello, but they don't stay for long, and Selka is always more comfortable when they leave. It's not that he doesn't like them. In fact, there's a strange sort of yearning that builds in Selka's chest by the day. A pressure of wanting something that he can't figure out yet. He enjoys their company and isn't used enough to most of the hermits that he doesn't shy away from them. But he also knows that they're planning something. It's kind of obvious. What with Mumbo's furtive glances and the hushed conversations he has with Scar when they think Zelka can't hear. There's something they're not telling him and it's making him nervous. And the more nervous he gets, the more his instincts act up. He clings to Mumbo more than usual, wings fluffing up whenever someone comes close. It's annoying, but he can't help it. It's almost a relief when Mumbo and Scar sit him down in the living room one day after lunch, even though there's a deep patch of dread in his gut. Whatever it is, at least it'll be over soon. Are you finally going to tell me what's going on then? He asks, and Mumbo and Scar throw each other nervous glances. The dread twists into something more like fear. He no longer harbors any doubts that they'll throw him out, but the situation is eerily similar to the one they went through on the picnic blanket. Zelkor represses a sigh. Void, he thought they'd all learned that this was the worst way to do things. But he bites his lip and firmly tells himself to keep a neutral expression, waiting as patiently as he can until Scar finally gathers his thoughts. So, there's something we'd like to propose to you, and it's totally fine if you don't want to. We understand that you're still settling in and getting used to everything, but we just thought that maybe if you're feeling up to it, which again, no pressure. Scott, you're worrying him. Mumbo finally cuts in, and Zelka shoots him a grateful glance. The more Scar talks, the tenser he feels himself get, and he's glad that Mumbo noticed his discomfort. Right, of course. Sorry. Scar's hands are twisting together, calloused palms and dirt-lined nails. So there's this thing that the hermits do on the first of every month. It's something of a meeting, I guess. Basically, we'll meet up and update each other on how we're doing and how our bases are going, stuff like that. And Exuma lets us know if there's any excursions or events happening, like a big off-world trip or an MCC or something. This makes sense. There's a lot of hermits and they're very spread out. But Zelkwood doesn't see what it has to do with him. He's not technically a hermit, and things like bases don't concern him, and he doesn't even know what an MCC is. Though the acronym seems to slot into his brain in a way he doesn't like. When was the last meeting? He asks instead, and the hermits exchange yet another glance. Zelka is beginning to wonder if they can communicate telepathically through eye contact. Well, technically the last one was 4 weeks ago, but we had an emergency meeting around 2.5 weeks ago because, well... Zelka counts back through the days and realizes that the emergency meeting matches up perfectly with when he lost control and tried to break the cuffs. A sour taste fills his mouth and he tries not to choke on it. Oh. But this is a routine one, which is why we decided we'd ask you this. Scar says in a rush, eager to move on from that particular subject. We're wondering if you'd like to come with us. Come with you? Zoko repeats, and suddenly his mind's eye is nothing but a mental image of standing in front of all the hermits, feeling like a butterfly pinned to a chalk or corkboard as he shrivels for words. The sour taste is back, along with the dread. That sounds horrible. We've already talked to Exuma and most of the others, Mumbo adds in, apparently sensing Zelka's anxiousness. They all understand if you're not ready yet, but they'd like to see you. Everyone's also promised not to crowd you, and you can leave at any time. This is about making you comfortable, though. So whatever you want can happen, even if you want to just sit in the doorway so you can have an escape route. Having an escape route sounds quite nice, though Zelda doubts he'll need it. The hermits seem very stubborn in not hurting him, which is still an alien experience that he's struggling to get used to. And he has been cooped up in Mumbo Space for a while. It's about time he starts to try and integrate himself into the community, since it looks like he'll be staying for a while. If they like me, they won't make me leave, Sokka thinks, and that sounds like a perfect plan. He knows that he'll have to leave eventually. It's inevitable for him, but he'd like to stay a while longer. Just a little bit. I'll go, he says, before he can process the words coming out of his mouth. And he watches as Scar and Mumbo both light up, grinning at him with poorly restrained joy. They're happy, he realizes, that he's finally taking a step forward and trying something new. Something akin to giddiness bubbles up in Zelka's chest. He smiles ever so slightly. It's probably a stupid idea. There's a million different ways it can go wrong. But gods be damned, he's proud. He's finally being brave and attempting to actually step forward and meet the people who saved his life. It feels suspiciously like healing, but Zelka isn't ready to do that yet. He isn't ready to face the truth that he's maybe, possibly, recovering from the Watchers. He's pretty sure he's never going to truly recover from them, but like hell he can try. So he gives Mumbo and Scar a small smile and decides that he's going to do his best to be brave. It's one day later and Zelka is not brave. He's hiding in his room, curled up in his nest, running stiff fingers through his wings, trying to block out the anxious thoughts that are running rampant in his head. What if the other hermits hate him? What if he does something stupid and they all want him gone? What if they see his wings and his eyes and remember he's a dangerous entity that needs to be eliminated? Mamu and Scar like me, he reminds himself, but it doesn't feel like enough. His hands tighten on his feathers, the ink-stained doubt dripping in his mind, and clouding his thoughts and screaming in his ears until sharp pain punctures his wing, and Zelka gasps, abruptly yanked back to reality as he stares in shock at the single purple feather laying in his palm. His gaze shifts to his wing, where he can tell just by feel alone where it's supposed to be. The feather flutters from his grasp, and Zelka pulls his knees up to his chest. He's pulled feathers before, of course. Old ones or broken ones that no longer have any use being on his wing, but the soft downy one that now lays at the bottom of his nest is healthy and strong. It has no business being anywhere but on his wing. But the slight pain had been enough to pull him from his thoughts, which is a good thing. If there's one thing he doesn't want is to be overwhelmed by the fears that were rampant in his head. He bites his lip and reaches for his wing again, gently running his fingers along the sore spot until it feels a little better. His hands drift to another feather, and he pulls it lightly. He doesn't budge. What if they hate me? What if I have to leave? He tugs on the feather again, this time harder. What if I embarrass myself? Harder. What if Momo kicks me out? Harder. What if Exuma makes me go back? Ouch! Another feather fluttering down to meet the first one. A small strangled whine of pain escapes Zelka's lips. But he's already reaching for the next because it doesn't hurt too much. And if it's alright, and it's alright, because it's keeping away the thoughts, and it's just until tomorrow. There's a knock on his door, and Zelka jerks his head up to see Mumbo peering in the doorway. Hey, mate. Sorry to interrupt. I was just stopping in. He trails off when he sees the purple feather between Zelka's fingers, and his coffee brown eyes go wide. I'm sorry. Zelka immediately bursts, crushing the feather in his hand and folding his wings back as small as they'll go. It was an accident. I promise it won't happen again. I was being silly. Zell, it's alright. Don't apologize. But did you do that to yourself? Mumbo interrupts him gently and crosses the room to sit down next to Zelka. His pale, spindly fingers reach for Zelka's, smoothing them out and urging them to drop the feather onto the blanket. Zelka nods miserably, eyes fixed firmly on the bed and refusing to meet Mumbo's. It was an accident, he mumbles. I don't know why I did it, but it felt good. I needed something else to concentrate on. He glances up to see Mumbo nodding along, but the Mumbo seems to only be part way listening to what he's saying. His mouth is moving imperceptibly, muttering something about avian instincts and unhealthy coping mechanisms. I'm sorry, Zelka finishes, because he doesn't know what else to say. Mumbo is already shaking his head, reaching to delve into his inventory as he replies. Don't apologize, though. It's not your fault. I'm glad I caught you before you caused any lasting damage. I should have known this would come up eventually. I've been researching avians, but I haven't had a chance to talk to. He trails off as he pulls out a medium-sized satchel, turning to Zelka. I figured you could use something to do with your hands, so if you have something else to concentrate on, he explains, and hands the bag over to the watcher. My favorite thing is fiddling with redstone, of course, but not everyone likes it, so I dug up these from a chest somewhere. Zelka considers Mumbo for a long moment, before untying the bag straps and carefully pulling it open, peering inside. The bag is full of small bits and pieces in a vast array of colors, and some of them seem to sparkle when they catch the light. They're a kind of building block, Mumbo explains, and grabs a handful to demonstrate how to use them. See? They click together like this. He slots a couple of the blocks together, and Zelka feels his eyes go wide when the pieces click and stay connected. As carefully as you would with a wild animal, Zelka reaches to take the blocks from Mumbo's palm and picks up another piece. Carefully, cautiously, he slots them together like Mumbo did. Click! Zelka lets out a happy trill, and Mumbo laughs. Your pupils have gotten twice as big, the hermit noticed, but Zelka is barely listening to him. Is that an avian thing? Probably, Zelka replies, but his words are distracted and distant, because he's already darting to the floor, turning the bag upside down and spilling all the colorful bricks on the rug. He immediately starts slotting them together, rest of the world forgotten and tossed aside in favor of the new discovery. I'll leave you to it then, Mumbo says with a light laugh. I'll come get you for the meeting in a few hours, okay? Yeah, okay, Selkirk replies in what is probably the most disrespectful tone he's ever used. He's worried about repercussions, but Mumbo simply chuckles again and departs from the room with a farewell that Zelkwa doesn't even hear. By the time Mumbo returns, Zelkwa's managed to build every build, a veritable block landscape ranging from tall towers to elaborate bridges. It's amazing, and he loves it. The ability to create something so quickly under his hands, a feeling that is both new to discover and familiar to return to. He's pretty sure he's done something like this before, though maybe on a bigger scale? He's not sure. Zell, that's amazing! Mumbo says, crouching down next to Zelkwa, peering with wide eyes at his latest creation. I had no idea you were a builder. Well. Suddenly self-conscious, Zelkwa shrugs and fiddles with the blocks in his hands, clicking and unclicking them in an attempt to distract himself. I don't know if I am. Well, I'd say you are. Mumbo seems like he'd be very happy to join Zelkwa on the rug and help him build with the blocks, but his gaze sharpens into something more urgent, and rises to his feet, offering a hand to Zelkwa. But we've got a meeting to get to. What do you think? Zelkwa considers the hand for a moment, the dread from earlier returning full force like a punch to the gut. But he told himself he was going to be brave. Brave it is. Accepting the hand, Zelkwa lets himself get hauled onto his feet and spreads his wings for balance. Let's go then. It takes them a good while to get to the meeting place. As Mumbo explained earlier, hermits travel everywhere by elytra this late in the season. But since Zelkwa refuses to take flight, they have to move on foot and by horse. Mumbo doesn't question why Zelkwa doesn't want to fly. He's 1,000 times grateful. Truly. And he's not sure why he's so adamant on traveling over the ground. All he knows is that if he were to try and leap into his air, his wings would refuse to spread. He's scared of flight, which isn't something he's experienced before, but until he can figure out why, he's staying away from open skies. Even so, it doesn't take them very long to make it to the meeting place. Apparently, it changes from month to month depending on accessibility, and Zelkwa suspects they moved it closer to Mumbo's base this time because of him. Not that he's ungrateful, he appreciates it a lot. The little gesture of goodwill. It shocks him that the hermits are still so willing to dispense them left and right like it's nothing. Are you ready? Mumbo asks, and Zelkwa gives him a shaky nod that doesn't seem to convey his confidence very well. I made sure we showed up a little early so you can meet everyone as they come in, Mumbo adds, and Zelkwa can almost dissolve from relief, because that means he won't have to walk into a room with all the hermits already there and staring. Thank you, he says, hoping his gratitude is conveyed through his voice. Something seems to work because Mumbo gives him a soft smile from under his mustache and leads him through the door into the room. The first thing Zelkwa notices is that it's a round table, which is funny to him, but he doesn't know why. Then he notices that Exuma's already sitting in one of the seats, chatting with Cleo, and he's struck with confusion all over again. Wouldn't the admin be sitting at the head of the table? Or at least in a seat of power? A glance around the table reveals that if someone were to pick a seat of power, they would have a hard time choosing. Every chair, armchair, and stool is completely and utterly customized. Cleus has vines crawling along the back. Etho is sitting on the far side in a strange redstone contraption that has note blocks built into the arms. And there's an empty armchair that seems to be part machine, part torture device. Zilkwa has a feeling that's Zenoph's. Over here, Zel, Mumbo calls out, and Zilkwa snaps back to reality, following Mumbo over to the two empty seats next to Exuma. Mumbo slides into the one further away, made of silver metal and plenty of buttons and toggles that Zilkwa desperately wants to press. The seat between Mumbo and Exuma is empty. Zilkwa realizes it's for him. It's a low-back stool that must be specially designed for avians because when he sits down, his wings settle over the back without any kind of discomfort. How are you, Zilkwa? Exuma greets. And it's a little strange, but he's trying. Zilkwa nods back, folding his hands together in an effort to keep from reaching for his wings again. Good, he says quietly, and then missed before he can stop himself. Nervous. A lot. There's no need to be worried. Everyone knows you're coming, so they know to be on their best behavior. Or, well, as good as it gets with my hermits. 10 diamonds say we'll have another fist fight by the end of it. Cleo draws on Exuma's other side, boots slung onto the table and lazily sharpening a knife. Usually the weapon would make Zilkwa nervous, but he's used enough to Cleo at this point that it's a normal sight. I'll take that bet, Etho replies, tapping out a short rhythm on his note block armrest. Zilkwa can practically sense his infectious grin under the mask. 15 on B-Dubs getting thrown across the table again. B-Dubs, dozing lightly in his moss-covered chair, bolts awake at the mention of his name, paired with an insult. Hey! He shouts indignantly, and everyone laughs. It always seems to Zilkwa that B-Dubs has only 2 settings, asleep or loud. He doesn't mind it, but it took a while to get used to the moss-cloaked hermit's boisterous attitude. Oh, are we slandering B-Dubs? Impulse asks, sauntering into the room, and throwing himself into his chair. He winks at Zilkwa, and something warm bubbles in his chest. That's my favorite part of the day. We're placing bets on what war-starting incident will happen today, Iskall explains, sitting next to Beef, and a man Zilkwa doesn't recognize. There's something off about him, too. In a way, there's something off about Etho and Exuma, but he doesn't push further. He doesn't want to know what the man is, if it means looking at him. Aw, and I thought we were going to give Zilkwa some slack since it's his first meeting. Impulse complains, but there's no real disbelief in his voice. If anything, there's the kind of mischievous glee that Zilkwa sees a lot in Scar, and he knows that Impulse wouldn't mind perpetrating a war-starting incident in the next 5 minutes. Exuma clears his throat and everyone quiets down, because even though he sits at a round table just like the others, he is still the admin. As funny as it would be to see B-Dubs get thrown across the table, why? It is Zilkwa's first meeting, so maybe dial down the warmongering for today, yeah? Aye aye, Captain. A newer rifle sings, sweeping in with a smell of flowers and bread. We'll do our best, but no promises. Hey, love, how you doing? She directs the last remark to Zilkwa, and he finally recognizes her as Stress, one of the hermits who visited him sometimes in the room. She's always been kind to him, so he gives her a hesitant smile. Good, he says, repeating what he said to Exuma. Stress nods and flashes him a bright grin before settling in her chair and turning to Impulse. The rest of the hermits trickle in, arriving in groups of 2 or 3 at a time. Tango and Zed burst in with a shout and an explosion, after which they're instantly berated by the rest of the group for startling Zelka, who flinches back with his whole body and nearly topples off his chair before Mumbo manages to catch him. "Sorry, Zel," Tango says, not looking very sorry at all and throwing himself into his fire motif chair. And Zed settles into the horrific traction next to it, mouthing a quick apology that seems more sincere. False arrives quietly, and Zelka doesn't even notice her until she's sitting down in her chair. Tucked into the more shadowed corner, she's joined by several others, and all the introductions make Zelka's head swim. Wells, XB, Jevin, Ren. The man sitting next to Beef and Isgal turns out to be named Joe, which is a hysterically plain name for someone who is very obviously not human. Zelka doesn't comment on it. It's a relief when Scar races in, out of breath and obviously late, because it's someone Zelka knows. The hermit flops into his dark wood chair and draws in several deep breaths, shooting Mumbo and Zelka a thumbs up. "Alright, I think that's everyone." Zuma stands up and claps his gloved hands together, drawing everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming. I'd like to start with a few admin notices, then we'll go into individual updates. Since Zelka's new, should we go over the meeting rules?" Stress offers, and a small smirk plays on her lips as she adds, "I think some of us could also do with a refresher." "It was an accident!" Tango immediately blurts, and everyone bursts out laughing. "That's a good idea, Stress. Thank you," Exuma says when everyone has quieted down. "If I forget anything, feel free to pitch in. You all know the drill." He holds up a gloved hand and ticks off the rules on his fingers. Number 1. No killing each other. Meetings are neutral ground. Number 2. No pranking, stealing, or griefing. Again, neutral ground. No wearing armor, more out of courtesy than anything else, Joe pipes up. No redstone fiddling under the table, Scar says, and several of the hermits, Mumbo, Tango, and Zed included, look flustered at that. Only Exuma and I are allowed to shout. Doc? Doc rolls a glance at the admin and amends with an eye roll. Only Exuma is allowed to shout. Technically, none of us are allowed to shout, but fine, Exuma says with an affectionate smile. There is no pressure to leave the meeting at any time, either from external reasons or internal conflict. Feeling overwhelmed, sick, anxious, or simply because you left something on your stove burner. Scar, Mumbo whispers in Zelka's ear. Thank you for your addition, Mumbo. But yes, whatever the reason, you're allowed to leave at any point. One of the others will be happy to fill you in afterwards if you so wish. Meetings are not mandatory, but a heads up is appreciated if you're planning on not showing up. Emergency meetings must be attended unless you have broken several bones or got stuck in the void. Or if your redstone malfunctioned and you got trapped in the pistons, someone adds. And Mumbo's face flushes a deep red, right down to his mustache. That was one time, he yelps. And everyone laughs again. Am I forgetting anything? Exuma asks when the room is quiet again. But no one speaks up. Right then. I think that's it. On to admin matters. Zelqua mostly tunes out the next while of the meeting, figuring that admin matters mean little to him. He tries to listen when things turn to more personal updates, but he quickly loses interest again when it's mostly about progress on bases or glitches around the server. He still does enjoy his time at the meeting. Hermits are all so comfortable with each other, firing snappy remarks and light-headed teasing across the table throughout the conversations. They're quick to fire up, but quicker to laugh. At one point, Etho and B-Dubs engage in an intense game of tossing a moss ball back and forth between them, until it's snatched out of the air by Zed, who promptly eats it. It's chaos, and Toko loves it. The entire meeting is enveloped in a warm bubble of friendship and mischief, and he can tell, even though they're all called hermits, that they truly care about each other, and they're like one big family. It makes something in his heart hurt because he can't shake the feeling that he used to have a family like this. One that he teased and laughed with and turned to when burdens became too heavy. Sister, brother, friend. He knows the words, know what they mean, but he also knows that they used to mean something more. That they used to be attached to names and faces. Why can't he remember? What happened to them? Those people he used to be surrounded by? The people he called family? He realizes there's tears forming at the corner of his eyes, and he blinks furiously to clear them away. There's no way he's letting himself break down in front of literally the entire server. And lastly, of course, there's the subject of our newest member. Xuma says, and someone nearly jumps out of his skin when everyone's eyes turn on him. I know all of you know Zelka already, but this is his first meeting, so I figured we could all introduce ourselves to get him started on learning about Hermitcraft. Don't worry about not remembering everyone's names. Bumbo mutters in Zelka's ear. It took me ages when I first joined. Zelka nods, but he still tries to remember everyone's names, matching them to their faces as best as he can. It helps that he already knows a lot of them, and the introductions are swift and quickly over. Alright, is that everything? Exuma asks, and when no one protests, he hums under his breath and brings up a panel. Bright text blinking at him from the screen. That's all I got on my list. MCC isn't for another few weeks. The last off-world trip wasn't that long ago, so if anyone needs anything, just shoot me a message and we'll figure it out. The panel flickers away and Xuma glances around the table, meeting each hermit's eyes for a fraction of a second. If there's anything you want to say it now. Last chance. Silence. Exuma gives a short nod and sits back down, steepling his fingers together. All right then. Meeting over. Class dismissed. Get out before someone sets something on fire. Yes, Exuma, sir. Someone sings and laughs bubble up as the hermits depart, re-equipping elytras and chatting amongst each other. Zelka stays where he is, unsure what happens now. A feather-light touch on his shoulder makes him look up quickly. Mumbo shoots him a small smile and motions to the door. Ready? He asks, and Zelka stands up quickly with a swift nod. He shoots a glance to Exuma, wondering if he should bow or at least say something. Bye, Exuma, he finally says, and the admin raises a hand in farewell. Zelka can't see his face behind the tinted visor, but he thinks he's smiling. Mumbo and Zelka walk outside where Scar is waiting for them with a bright, although slightly nervous smile. He shifts from one foot to the other and leans on his cane with both hands. So, what do you think? He asks, and Zelka hums thoughtfully as he runs over the meeting in his head. It was a bit loud and there were a lot of people, but I liked it, he says aloud, and Scar's grin, if possible, stretches wider. And that is the end of chapter 11.